I am going to do a bone video on the axial skeleton. So first I'm going to start off with the cranial bones. So I have a little skeletal system here. So I'll I'll get up as close as I can. So we first start with the frontal, which is here. And then we go with the parietal. So you have your parietal left and your parietal right. And then you have your occipital. Now, along with your occipital here is, you see this little point here, or like this bony. This is called your external occipital protuberance. And this is where it's used because the muscles in the head, it keep it upright and allow your head to tilt back. So now with the external, this side view here, you have your temporomandibular joint, which is here. You have your mastoid process, which is here. You have your styloid process, which is in here. Then you have your external acustus meatus, which is here. Then you have your squamous part, which is here. Now, we can't do really an internal view because I can't take this off. But in the internal view, you have the structures that are housed in there supports the part of the face known as the temple. So the temple over here, and that has the organs of the hearing in there. So your internal acustus meatus passes through, like, that has your nerves, including your face and your auditory nerves. So that's what's in there. Now your sphenoid, which is here. So with your sphenoid, you have your superior and your superior orbital fissure, and what passes through there are your veins. So like I said, we can't really do like an internal view of the greater wing and the lesser wing, but within your optic canal is your superior orbital fissure, and that's what passes through your optic canal. Then you have your sella turcica, which sits in the fossa, and what's in there is like it's like a little saddle-shaped depression in the sphenoid bone. And your ethmoid is in your eye here. So if you could get up a little closer. Yeah. So in your internal view, you have your crystal galli, and your crystal galli is like your median ridge of the bone that projects from the cribriform plate to the ethmoid bone. So, and then you have your cribriform, which has your small axons that has your receptors from, your receptors for your bipolar, with bipolar neurons. Now I'm going to show you the sutures. So you have your coronal suture, you have your parietal suture, you have your lambdoid suture. See, over here we got the squamous part. Now we're going to go to, with your coronal sutures. So your coronal suture separates your frontal bone from your parietal bones, and your sagittal suture, separates. So this is your sagittal suture. So this suture separates from your two parietal bones from your left, from your right. Then your lambdoid, which is here, that separates the posterior edge of the parietal bone from the, or form the occipital bone. And then your squamous over here, your squamous is superior border of the squamous part of the temporal bone. So it's kind of like border right here. So now we'll go to the facial bones. So with the facial bones, we have the maxilla, which is over here. We have your mandible, which is here. So this is your mandible. And then you have your vomer, which is here. You have your inferior nasal concha, which is here, like the shell of your nose. And you have, of course, your on your mandible, you have your body, your angle. So let me go to the mandible. On your mandible, you have the body of your mandible. You have your, let's see, your maxillary bone, your zygomatic bone. So this is your zygomatic process, your zygomatic bone. You have your mental foramen. You have your mental protuberance. Your mastoid process. You have your external acutus canal, which is a little hole. Now we're going to go on to the vertebral column. So this is this here. So we have the curves here. And you can see the curves in the body. So if I turn my system this way, your curves are your cervical, your thoracic, your lumbar, and your sacral. So now I'll start with the, well, I'll say how many are on your cervical vertebrae. So you have 7 here, and your atlas, which is here. So this is the bone that articulates from the superior occipital bone. And then, so if you point at me, Serena, this allows you to go like this with your head. So that's what that atlas is for. Then you have your, what's unique, or I should say the thoracic vertebrae, there's 12 of those. So we have the T1 through T12. And in between your thoracic, you have your spinous process, your transverse process, and your intervertebral foramen. And what passes through that is your spinal nerves leaving your spinal cord, which we can't really get a view of that from here. But then you have the body or the centrum, which positions the intervertebral disc. So the little discs that go in between. And let's see. Now we're going to focus our attention to the lumbar. And in the lumbar vertebrae, we have 5. And the lumbar also supports the pelvic girdle. It is the largest and the strongest. And your sacrum have vertebrae fused together, which is your coccyx point anteriorly and your female's point inferiorly. Your coccyx, which is your tailbone, in males, I guess you should say, has the point, and then for females it points inferiorly. Then you have, let's see. So that is your sacral and your coccyx, which is your tailbone. Then if we go up to the sternum, so I'll just turn him around. So you have your xiphoid process here. You have the body of it here. You have your jugular notch here, and your body, and your manubrium, or I think I'm saying that right, is this area in here. This is your manubrium. And then we go to the ribs. So, of course, these are your ribs here. With your ribs, 1 through 7, they say, are your true ribs. 8, 9, and 10 are your false ribs. And then you have 11 and 12, which are here. And they call these the floating ribs, and that is because they do not meet anteriorly to the sternum. So see how they're not connected? They're only connected to the vertebral column. Now, let's see. We'll point out how the ribs. So the facet on the head articulates with the facet of the bodies on the thoracic vertebrae. The neck is constricted, is the constricted part of the bone, with the tubercle that articulates with the articular facet on the transverse process of the inferior vertebrae. So this body part is called like the shaft. So that's pretty much it for my presentation today. Thank you very much.